Hello and welcome to the Full Advisor Coaching Podcast with your host, Kristin Harad. Kristin, hey, it's great to be with you, and I'm looking over what you plan to talk about today, and it dovetails very nicely with several episodes, in fact, before this one. So at the beginning, I'm going to tell people you'll be talking about some prior episodes, and they should, if they didn't hear them in the first place, go back and listen to them, or maybe listen to them again. How are you? It's good to see you.
I am good. Wow. Already, yeah, sending people away before we even get
I
in.
know, I
But
know I shouldn't do that, right? Stay
I
right
know,
where
I
you
know.
are, listeners. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, but it's totally fine if they want to, because we are in recent episodes we talked to Kristen Luke
Mhm.
about niche marketing and and we touched on content marketing, how you can use that to demonstrate your expertise for an audience. And then we had Brent Carndiff on about search engine optimization.
That
And
was
we also,
fascinating, actually. The
yeah,
the power of the SEO has just blew my mind.
yes, that is always a popular topic with advisors. Niche and SEO are two of the questions I'm asked the most about, I'll
Oh,
say,
okay.
in the marketing, when it comes to marketing.
Yeah,
And we talked about that, and all of that kind of ties back to content marketing as a strategy, and
yeah.
that's one area that advisors will fall victim to what I'm going to talk about today, which is what I like to refer to as the perfection paradox. Right?
Mm.
So kind of that double-edged sword of wanting to get things right, and not
Yeah.
just right, but like flawless, like absolutely right. Um, and I know you've talked to a number of advisors being a producer like this on these types
Yeah.
of on this show. And there's just something about being a financial advisor. A lot of them are, they obviously want to be well researched
Sure.
and knowledgeable. And frankly, we cover so many topics. Having been a financial advisor, I know, like,
Yeah.
you cover so many topics, especially if you do comprehensive planning in any way,
Hmm.
that to have to know so much about so many things requires quite a lot of study and staying on top of things and really wanting to understand the details so that you can offer the best advice for your client, right?
Well, and which is understandable and actually makes me feel better as a person who
Yeah,
uses a financial advisor, right?
exactly. You're like hoping that
Yeah,
you're like, okay, you're running projections. You're essentially telling me whether my life savings is going to serve me for the rest of my life or not. And you're
exactly.
making assumptions and projections. And yes, things change, but as a whole, there's a precision that's somewhat expected there.
Yeah,
Uh,
but that being said, and maybe I'm different. I don't expect perfection, but I've been
right.
around covering this for a long, long time. So maybe I'm different in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say the same. I don't expect perfection either, though you do want accurate assumptions and accurate
Oh
information
yeah, that's
and
different. Yeah.
those types of things. And I think that's that's kind of the difference. I mean, perfection is I mean, there's many people who strive for perfection for
Of course.
reasons that, are all kinds of backstory on why they want to be perfect. And frankly, I think everyone falls victim in different areas of their lives on that, depending on, where you come from. But there are consequences, right, in our industry, especially if you are an advisor and you are giving advice around money to someone and
Yeah.
you screw it up, right? That's why there is errors and omissions insurance, right? There is insurance around that. You can screw it up. No, you can give wrong advice or bad advice
Right.
and or make an error. And then you need to remedy that, whether you've made the wrong trade or forgot to place a trade or something happened with the trade or you messed up a Roth conversion. There's many things that can happen that you have to pretty much own and get on top of, and that you have to, put processes in place to make sure these types of errors don't occur or
Yeah.
omissions. So
No. I mean,
Understand
I
that.
think as you go into this, I think one of the worst things that can happen, honestly, is not that the advisor's perfect. It's that the advisor doesn't own his or her mistakes. That
Oh, absolutely.
you know, and it's like they're so driven to be perfect, they don't want to admit that they made a mistake here or there.
Yes. And I think the sooner that an advisor owns it and gives a call to the client, says, hey, guess what? This is what happened. And we're going to remedy it to the best that we can. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes there's just a cost and something happens and then you have to figure out how to handle that. But I actually had that happen when I had my planning firm, and it was
Mm.
awful. And it wasn't to the degree, luckily no action had been taken by the client, but I was trying to remember the specifics when I was kind of thinking about this, but it doesn't ever go away because you can't help but forget. I mean, but remember,
Yeah.
you
Well,
can't forget.
it's like athletes can never ever forget their losses. They often
Yeah,
forget
exactly.
wins, but they can't ever forget those
That
losses that eat at them.
Yes, exactly. I know. So yeah, this I had a client like way back early on, and I had done some cash flow projections for this
Mhm.
young family. And I can't remember what the topic was, but I feel like it was probably around whether or not you could pay for private school, or, you know, how many kids could go to private school, something around that. And we did
Right.
cash flow projections. And somewhere along the line there, and I didn't have software that was doing it for me. I had an Excel spreadsheet and I had analyzed their data and
Yeah.
I had put it into a sheet, and somewhere there was an error. I must have done a negative when there was a positive, or some sort of error in there that rendered an outcome that said, oh, you will be fine to do this, as in it
Ooh,
will
okay.
fit in the spending plan.
Sure.
And then I was reviewing the numbers and I had presented that, and like, great, here's the good news, blah, blah, blah. And then I went back and was reviewing the file and checking out something. And I was like, oh no, I found the error. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, the revised accurate outcome was actually not as positive, right? It would require some trade-offs for them.
Yeah.
So I had to get on, got on the phone after mustering the courage, because I was like, insert swear words here and there, oh my goodness,
Yes.
world will collapse. I'm going to be out of business, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, I'm going to just call them and I'm going to tell them what happened. And I did. And it was, of course, disappointing to them that it changed the outcome, but they had not yet any information I had given them, because I did, to your point, get on the phone as quickly as I found out about it and said,
Yes.
okay, we're going to need to, review and look at the strategy again. It hurts, right? It hurts to make
Yes.
that, because you think, oh, now I've chipped away at the trust they had in me.
Hmm.
But then, they understood. It's just it's better if it works in their favor than not,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it
yeah,
didn't.
but we
And
can
so
all
you,
identify with that. If there's a listener listening who can't identify with that, I don't believe them. Okay. I just don't believe it.
yes, yeah. The whole point of that story being that I get, there's some real consequence that can happen if an advisor makes mistakes in the business of advising. And when we talk about how do we grow and create a growth engine and attract more of the right kind of clients we want to work with, and how do we nurture prospects, and how do we engage clients and have them rave about us, we don't need to be perfect here. And if you kind of carry over, this is where the paradox comes. It's like, if you have this perfection and you carry it over into doing really good marketing, sales, client communication, etc., you're going to fail to oftentimes it means you're going to fail to take action, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have this like desire to deliver something excellent, to really be well researched, and in the, let's say, content marketing, you're putting out a
Okay.
blog article, you're going to work on it and work on it and work on it. and try to get it right at the peril of sharing the information that could help the reader, right? So we could sit here, Bill, and try to get every word that you and I say back and forth absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
But it may be next year before we publish.
Before this episode.
And then nobody gets to hear any of this. And so,
So how do you
that-
overcome that? I mean, seriously, how do you're dealing with firms and who are concerned,
right.
who, want to do the best and the rightest and everything else. I can see them getting stuck, as it were.
Right.
How do you
Right.
unstick them, if I can borrow
Yes.
a
Well,
phrase
I
there?
think, I think it is understanding that there is a mindset shift that has to happen, because while we have to be accurate again in
Yeah.
the information you're sharing, you don't have to get the execution of a podcast, a video, a blog article perfect, right? Because I know a lot of listeners out there are fans of Seth Godin. He's like a marketing expert, big, everyone, interesting, fun person. I was listening to an interview he was doing with Tim Ferriss, and I listened to that yesterday. And I've heard Seth say this before on the topic of like creative development and content. And he says, if it doesn't ship, it doesn't count. I love that, because it's like on the point of reiteration and reiterate,
Yes.
like, because he said he'll do a blog post and then he'll look at it again and then he'll revise it. And at some point there's a deadline and it has to ship. So
Yeah.
he ships it, right? Meaning he posts it, right? It's
Right.
out in the world.
Boom.
So, and I love that, because it's very clear. Like, if you don't send the email, no one's going to respond to it. No one's going to say, oh, by the way, I did want to sign that contract, or, oh yeah, I did want to come in for that consultation. You have to actually follow through for someone to do that. So,
Well, actually, it makes me wonder if in part of this, if deadlines aren't actually part of the tool that you use. I mean, I don't know.
that can be, for sure. And that's one of the things coaching does help with, that, with the accountability, or like even whether you're working with a coach, or you have an accountability partner, or a mastermind group where you're all agreeing, like, okay, we're going to make sure that we
Yeah.
hold each other accountable to this. That's one of the biggest things that I see. It's getting to a place where it's good enough to ship, right? Like, we get it to a place that's not perfect. So you ask kind of how we get into that. I think first it's around, and when I'm working with my clients and talking with them, one-on-one, and saying, okay, we need to really work on adopting this mindset of what I call the implementation gray zone. And so as soon as you say gray zone to an advisor, you start thinking, oh, does that mean unethical? Is that not professional grade? Like, what does that mean? And when I say gray, I'm saying in between, how there's in between the absolutes of black and white.
Yes.
So like this space in between that is gray, right? We have to think about things as iterative progress, right? Where each little action we take will add a little more value to the business. And that's the fun part about marketing and sales. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, it's like, it's the whole idea of even an improvement of 1% each time is a 1% improvement, as opposed to no progress or no improvement.
Yes. Yeah. And I think in Atomic Habits, James Clear, the book Atomic Habits, James Clear references the idea of 1% improvement, and how that, much like compounding interest, builds over time, right? So that's another idea that really resonates with advisors. So it's like, oh yeah, I just have to get a little bit better. And that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Probably one of a great example of this is, and we'll get into this topic probably somewhere down the line in our discussions, Bill. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
But I always have advisors develop a lead magnet, right? So that they have free information they give away in exchange for a name and email address. So they
Sure.
can start, capture a lead, put a lead in the system, and then nurture that lead with what's called an autoresponder email series. So, or a drip sequence, as people like to say, but it's follow-up. So people, advisor will come in and go, okay, so I need a lead magnet. So let's say it's a PDF download that's like 8 or 10 pages. First question, they're always like, well, how long does it need to be? How many pages? What do I need? And I'm like, okay. And then I love to respond with whatever amount of whatever number of pages you need to convey the information you need to convey, which they love, because then you're like, that's not telling me what the rule is I have to follow.
Yeah. I'd like a rule, please.
I know. And I was like, well, we're going to have something we want to teach, and we need to put it in a framework. And then we need the framework to be digestible. And that could be in 2 pages, or it could be in a 50-page download. But, so that we try to back off that and say, okay, let's just go with it. Should be 8 to 10 pages, even though we'll see as we go. And so we have that lead magnet. And then I talk about the follow-up sequence where, and a lot of advisors are pretty savvy on this because they've seen it happen, where it's like, okay, how many email follow-ups do I need to put in the sequence? So like in a MailChimp or Constant Contact email program, they have something called an autoresponder, where I, as the user, come in and I put my name and email in. I download my guide. I get an email. You've done this.
Yeah.
Oh, I want my free
Yep.
thingy. Gets an email. I go, great, here it is. And I can download it. And then a couple days later, I get another email that says, hey, how are you enjoying your thingy?
Yeah.
And then maybe another week later, you get, hey, by the way, I have this cool webinar I'm hosting on the topic. Would you like to join? And then there's another follow-up that's like, I have some more valuable information for you. And then another one that says, how would you like to come have a consultation and talk to me? So there's a follow-up that happens. So where I see this idea of perfection coming in is that an advisor will want to have all of it done before they launch it. And my favorite part about, of course, use of digital tools is that we don't ever need to have everything figured out in advance. Like if you were doing printing or mailing or buying a list and doing all these different things, you can put a lead magnet up on your website, which is simply like some text and a form that you put on your site, and hopefully a graphic or something interesting. And then you can have a basic confirmation that says, here's the thing that you requested. And you have delivered what you said you would give, and that person has entered your list. Now, if we don't follow up, over time, they're going to be like, who is this? What's that? They'll forget you, but you'll have the name and email. So you will have completed step 1 and taken and made some progress, as in you have something you give away, and people who come to your website who aren't yet ready to have a consultation have a way to interact with you.
So you've moved it forward. You're moving forward now, right? You're off the pause button, and you're actually.
I was going to say you've gotten off the block. I thought you were going to say off the starting block. Yes.
Well, that too.
Yes. So you have
coming off a starting block is really different for me coming off a starting block.
All right,
mine's a much slower pace afterwards.
Yeah. I was like, I guess it depends on the sport, right? Though when swimming, that definitely was always like the hardest part. But I think of someone in track who pushes off that block. I'm always amazed by that. That's impressive to me. We digress, though. But so then I'm like, if everyone, I won't, and I can't even tell you how many times I've been through this, but I'm like, if we don't have to wait for the sequence, get the piece up. And it takes long enough to get the piece to a place where someone approves it. And even so, I say, the piece doesn't need to be perfect. Sure, you have to get it compliance approved, and whatever that means to you and your firm. There's a wide range of I have to submit it and get it approved. And other people are like, I am the compliance. I know it's okay. And again, we just have to get something that's presentable and representative of your brand and educates the audience on what they want to talk about, right?
Well, a lot
So
of times I think, and you please comment on this. I think a lot of people confuse a couple of things. They want to be perfect. So they get stuck on the inaction. And part of the reason they want to be perfect is that some people just like, this quality's got to be the best quality ever.
yes, yeah.
And so I guess my question to you is, are those
Oh,
values in conflict? I mean, is there a quality versus perfection kind of notion, or what?
yeah, yeah. And that is tough because you don't want to put out junk, right?
Right.
And so this is where it gets down to your strategy and saying, okay, I am, a lot of times when advisors come to me, as you know, we focus, and as I've referenced those other episodes, content marketing is often a pillar marketing strategy that I recommend for advisors because it can inform all parts of the business development ecosystem, whether it's brand awareness or attracting in new leads, or nurturing a lead to be a prospect, or nurturing a prospect to become a client, or adding value to a client to make a referral. So it could be anywhere along the way. So one of the things that's really important is that you allow the time and space to create something that's quality without worrying about having to get it 100% right. But if you create time, and we did the episode, I think it was episode 7 on time management, and we started talking about productivity and trying, how do we find time in our calendar to do good, deep work?
Yeah.
That's what we have to look and say, how is it that we can make this a priority so that we are feeling good about the quality without having to, like, if we can let go of the perfection, but give ourselves the space to have something that is very good, but could always be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
So,
mean, I don't know. I think you're this way. We've spoken enough. It's like everything can always be better.
oh, please. Absolutely.
You know.
You have to try to let go and go, that's good. That is good enough. And you leave it at that. And that's a tough one to get over for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, when we get down to kind of embracing this gray zone idea, right?
Right.
And we start with something small. So yes, launching a lead magnet isn't always small because it takes a little time to create it, but can you publish that piece and then say, okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to figure out what the second email in the sequence is, because I've sent one, which is, here's your thing.
Here's your
Now,
thing.
what's my second email, right? So
Yeah.
then you break it down and you go, okay, I'm going to take this and then I'm going to break it down to the next one and the next one. And the really good thing about doing that is you don't waste. It's actually more productive because you're not wasting effort, right? You're saying, you have one follow-up email and then maybe you have a second, but you can start to see, are people reacting to it? Are people engaging? Are they not engaging? You can see, you can get real-time feedback, right? So is it something that it looks like you need to adapt? Has nobody opened the email? If that's the case, do we need a different subject line? There's things like that.
Yeah. No, I
we
was wondering where feedback comes into this equation, and there we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So start with something small, get it out there, and then we can start to look and say, okay, now that we have something out there, let's get feedback. And so that we don't have to feel like we have to get it 100% right away. Right. So a great way to do this, to test a concept without being like going all in, is the webinar. I love this. Is one of my favorite things to say, okay, I am going to I'm going to host a webinar, and people spend all their time developing the slides, getting it ready, getting it perfect, and then saying, now we will market the webinar. And then nobody signs up. So,
Ouch.
yes. So what I like is to say, okay, if there's a concept you think you want to have for a webinar, come up with a title, come up with 3 or 4 learning points that they could, that you're going to convey and teach, and then announce the webinar, pick a date, put it far enough in the future so that you have a little time,
Right.
and market it. And if people sign up, you have to hustle a little bit to get your slides done, but you'll know that it's interesting and it's something that they care about. But you won't have put the time and energy in if it's something that's like, oh, that didn't resonate, or it didn't resonate right now. So it's a
Mm.
way to get the real-time feedback on that, which I think is really, really valuable for an advisor who does get stuck and be like, all right, I'm just going to test this out. I do that with speaking all the time. I'll submit a speaking proposal on a topic I've not spoken about
Oh,
officially, just to see if it gets traction. Be like, I wonder if this will resonate with this audience. And I'll submit the title, the learning points, a brief description. And then if they come back and say, yes, we'd love to have you speak about this, then I get into the details of it and drill down on it. But I use it as a real-time check just to see,
yeah.
or they might come back and say, well, this is interesting, but our audience would like a little different take on it, or we'd like it this way. Then you can go, oh, okay, that's helpful,
Yeah.
So I love that piece for sure. So I think that could be something that if advisors want to, even putting a blog article up about a topic they think is interesting and seeing, does it get traction? Does it get engagement? Do people want to hear more about it? That could be really interesting for you.
Yeah. No. Feedback is invaluable.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how it can help guide you in exactly the way you're talking about, in the sense of it gives you a sense of what people want to hear, what people need to hear, what people are looking to learn about. So,
Right.
being adaptable to that, I think is vitally important.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. Like when you can take this iterative approach, right, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna adopt a, say, content strategy, and I'm gonna iterate and develop over time. You start to be able to adapt to what's happening in the world, especially in the financial world, because markets go up, markets go down, and we try not to draw attention to clients on that, but you have a big drop like March 2020 when the market just like fell during COVID, and clients panic, right?
Oh yeah.
They panic, and it's like, okay, how do you react to that? Sometimes the reaction is like, stay the course, don't wave the red flag. But I remember specifically during that time getting a call from my advisor who never calls me on like a market drop, and I don't call them panicked, but they
Yeah.
proactively reached out on that because it was so significant at the time.
Oh.
But I was just thinking, like, once you have this, adaptability mindset, then you can say, all right, we're going to reach out to, say, our clients. And what we're going to do is, we know that they might be a little worried. So we'll record. One of my favorite things to do is like record a Loom video. So
Mm.
if you haven't used Loom, it's a great tool that's free. You can jump on, you can record up to a 5-minute video, and you can just say, hey, I know, deliver the message that you would want to deliver to your clients around, ups and downs in the market are totally normal. We've accounted for this in the way we do your plan, and whatever your calming tone is that you
Yeah.
provide. You can record that. You can get it sent out within just a few minutes, and you could do it individually if that's your way. But what I want, once you've taken on this, like, I'm not going to worry about perfection. I'm going to worry about, I'm going to make it just real and deliver.
Mhm.
You know, you don't go in and edit the ums out or say, oh, I wish I would have cut the video a second sooner because they saw me close the browser or any of those things. You just record it, you send it out. You've handled the main point, which is I'm going to provide a moment of calm for my client versus worrying about waiting a few days. They've panicked for a couple of days. They might call in, take much more of your time. You've been able to adapt and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to reach out. It's not perfect, but I want them to know I'm here. I want them to know that everything's okay. And then they move on. So
Yeah. Well, in that case, I would argue that perfection would work against you because it's creepy if, for example, the bottom of the market is falling out and people are feeling their stomachs sinking and falling, and you come on and
yes,
you're like all perfect. You know, they'd
right,
be like,
right.
who is this person? And
Yes. Why
why
is
do
it
I
so
know that?
polished? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't they? Yeah. So I think there is the personal element, and I've seen that work really well. I have a number of clients who use that even in a positive way, like reaching out just to say, hello, wanted to check in, let
Yeah.
you know, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out so that they do it without, you know, perfect lighting, without the right exact sound. Like
Yeah.
it's just get it done and get it out in a way that's authentic, you know. So
Yeah.
that that works. And I think the biggest thing is, and I have to remember this myself too, because, you know, we all fall victim to like, well, let's get it perfect. Or, you know, as soon as we hang up here, Bill, I'm going to be like, oh, I wish I would have said this, or,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
can
Yeah.
we
Sure.
edit this
Sure.
back?
Oh, no,
And
no.
then,
Absolutely. Yes.
and
Yes.
I know I'm going to do that. And I'll just go, you know what, if it sits there and it's something I really want to talk about again, I'll do another episode and I will add it on later.
Yeah.
So that'll be really good. But so I think it's important to, you know, celebrate each step that you put in place. Be like, now I have 3 follow-up emails. That's incredible. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So that,
Well, I think if you celebrate progress, you reinforce the mechanism that created the progress. Am I right about that?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. You know, it's like that. I know a lot of advisors teach the debt snowball, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, oh, pay down one credit card and then next, and then you take that payment and transfer it over. And the whole idea of the debt snowball taking
Yeah.
care of your credit card debt, and or like like we talked about before, just the contribute, you know, you contribute to your 401k over time, compounding interest, it grows. It's like, oh, just take the behavior, do the reps, it'll build up over time. You'll be, you know, stronger, faster, wealthier, whatever it is, you know, better, more connected. So it applies across many parts of your life. And so let's bring it into your marketing, sales, client
Yes, exactly.
communications as well. Yeah. I think it's refreshing too, because, you know, there's so much in the world, especially with social media and everything going on, that really focuses on like glorifying this is perfect, this is perfect. It's so nice when you can just go get it accurate, get it authentic in the way that fits with your brand. But if you're running the business, you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be perfect, you know.
Yeah.
It's more important that you take this mindset of living in the gray zone of, I'm going to get good enough work out there so that I can get my message to the people who need it, and they can act on that information and improve their lives. And frankly, it just makes it a whole lot more fun to think about doing it
Well,
that
yeah,
way.
you know what? And as a potential client to financial advisors, right? I want to know that, you know, it's a real relationship.
Right.
I need to feel like that is a real relationship. And the kind of content and marketing ideas and things you're talking about here establish sort of an antidote to the social media notion of everything has to be great, everything has to be perfect, you know,
Yes.
and instead you're basing a relationship on something that's real.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's really what's going to keep the, you know, the relationship over time. And that's what you know, that's what we all, at least the advisors I work with, that's what they crave, right? They want those relationships, they want to have the impact, they want to make a difference, and they want to show that they're human too.
Of
So
course.
yeah.
course. Well, for people who are listening to this, in particular, financial advisors who are looking at ways to grow their business and maybe move off of where they are now, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you? How should they do that?
I think the best way is to go to the website, go to fulladvisorcoaching.com.
Mhm.
You can see other podcast episodes there. You can check out the blog. There's some free content available for download, which may or may not have a full series of follow-up. I'm not sure where I am in that sequence. I'm kidding. But I do actually, I launched my site with one that was like a download with, I did not have the follow-up sequence in place, which was causing angst, but I was like, it's okay. I'm going to come back to it. So yes, go to the website. You can also go to LinkedIn and connect with me there. We'll have that in the show notes. I'm often on LinkedIn, chatting, being less than perfect, but getting content out there. So
Well, that's because you practice what you preach.
I try. So
Yeah, that's
not
great.
perfect. I'm not perfect, which is good, as it
Yeah,
is.
no,
So
that's great. That is great. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast and enjoying it as much as I enjoy being a part of this podcast, quite frankly, you should, if you're not already a subscriber, become one. Just hit the follow button. That's the easy part. Hit follow. That way you don't have to wonder when's the next podcast coming out, because you will be notified automatically that Kristin has a new podcast that is dropped and you can go listen to it. I would also encourage you to, if you like this podcast, rate it and share it with other people. If you find it useful, spread the word about what Kristin is talking about here and the kinds of things that she routinely covers in her podcast. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker, and on behalf of Kristin and everybody at Full Advisor Coaching, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen and remind you that you can go out today and make it a great day. Or not. It is your choice. Until next time.